Welcome to today's episode of the Deep Dive Credit Podcast, presented by Elite Credit Solutions. We are your trusted partner in affordable credit repair, proudly based in Tampa, Florida, and dedicated to serving clients across the entire United States. Join us as we explore the intricacies of credit management, share expert insights, and empower you with the knowledge you need to achieve your financial goals. Get ready for an enlightening journey into the world of credit. Let's dive in.
All right, everyone ready for this? Today we're going deep on salvage title cars. You know those vehicles with a bit of a history, a past, maybe a little mysterious sometimes? We've got a whole bunch of articles, some forum threads, even a few notes from mechanics here. And our mission is to figure out if these salvage title cars are diamonds in the rough, or if they're just money pits.
You know, the interesting thing is that most people, when they hear salvage title, they just think, oh, major accident. But that's not always the case.
Oh, really? So besides the fender bender gone wrong, what else could lead to a car getting that salvage title brand?
Well, I mean, think about it. Flood damage, like after a hurricane. Or you could have a hailstorm. That leaves the car looking like a golf ball. Even theft recovery, where, they stripped the car. Actually, one of our sources mentioned a case where a car got totaled just because of vandalism.
Yeah.
Someone went crazy with the spray paint, and it was so bad the insurance company decided it was cheaper to just write it off.
Wow, you really don't think about all the things that can happen to a car out in the world. But how does an insurance company actually decide when a car is officially totaled? Like, is it just based on what the damage looks like?
Well, it's more about the numbers than the looks, actually. They use something called the total loss threshold to figure it out. And here's the crazy thing. It's not even a set percentage. It actually changes from state to state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Some states might set it at like 60% of what the car was worth before the accident. Others use this complicated formula, looking at the car's age, its condition, all sorts of factors.
Okay, so no magic number then. But let's say the insurance company does decide, okay, this is it, this car is totaled. That's when the salvage title comes into play, right?
Exactly. That's when it gets that sort of scarlet letter on its history.
But you can't legally drive a car with a salvage title out on the roads, can you?
Nope, that's right.
So what happens then? Just sits in a junkyard somewhere?
Not necessarily. It can get a new life, so to speak. But it needs a lot of work. Repairs, inspections, the whole shebang, before it can be legally registered again. That's where the rebuilt title comes in.
Oh, okay, so it's like a second chance for the car. But that rebuilt title, wouldn't that still make it hard to sell? Or even to insure?
That's one of the big questions we're going to be talking about today. Because, let's face it, a salvage title car can be a really good deal, especially if you're into cars or you're looking for a project. But it's not something to jump into without thinking.
So are we talking about hidden gems here or potential lemons? Let's break down the pros and cons. What do you say?
All right, let's start with the good stuff. The most obvious advantage is the price. We're talking potentially saving a ton of money. Often 20%, even up to 40% less than what you'd pay for a comparable car with a clean title.
Wow, that is a big chunk of change. So for someone on a tight budget, a salvage title car could be a way to get something they couldn't normally afford.
Right. Exactly. And sometimes you can even find what we call diamonds in the rough. Like, remember that hailstorm example we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
The car structure itself might be totally fine, but the insurance company totaled it because fixing all those dents was just too expensive.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like finding, a designer dress at a thrift store with a tiny snag you can easily fix, and you get it for a steal. Besides cosmetic damage, what other diamond in the rough scenarios could we see?
Well, older cars are a good example. Sometimes, even if an older car is in great shape, if it gets into even a minor accident, the repairs might cost more than the car's actually worth at that point. So it gets totaled and branded with a salvage title, even though the damage might not be that serious.
Oh, that makes sense. So basically the insurance company's saying it's not worth fixing this old timer, even if it might still have some life left.
Yeah, pretty much. And then there are theft recoveries. Sometimes a stolen car is found super quickly and there's barely any damage.
Yeah.
But the insurance company's already paid out the claim. So the car ends up with a salvage title, even though it might be perfectly fine mechanically.
Wow, that's almost like the best case scenario for a salvage title, right? Minimal damage, and you could get a huge discount.
Yeah, it could be. But there's another whole group we haven't talked about yet. The DIY folks and the car hobbyists. For them, a salvage title car could be like a dream come true.
I can see the appeal there. Kind of a blank canvas for someone who loves to tinker.
Exactly. They can rebuild it however they want, customize it, and they might even end up with a car that's better than it was before.
Yeah, or even use it for parts for other projects. So yeah, there are definitely some pretty enticing reasons to think about a salvage title car, but let's be real, there are some big risks too, right?
Absolutely. And the biggest one, hands down, is safety. Even with a rebuilt title, you just never really know how bad the damage was or if the repairs were done the right way. We're talking about your safety here and the safety of everyone else on the road. So this is not something to take lightly.
You're right. It's not just about saving some money. So what kind of hidden dangers should we be looking out for?
Well, one of the trickiest things to figure out is water damage. Think about a car that's been underwater in a flood. Sure, maybe the engine and mechanical parts can be fixed, but water can really mess up a car's electrical system and cause corrosion in places you can't even see. These problems might not show up right away, but they can lead to major headaches down the line.
Yeah, that's kind of scary, like a ticking time bomb you didn't even know was there.
Exactly. And then there's the potential for fraud. There are definitely some shady sellers out there who might try to downplay the damage or cut corners on the repairs. They might even try to pass off a flood-damaged car as something with just minor cosmetic issues.
So how do you protect yourself from these, less than honest sellers? How can you tell if a deal is legit or a disaster waiting to happen?
Well, that's where you got to become a bit of a detective. It's all about being proactive and really doing your homework.
So where do we start our salvage title investigation?
First things first, the pre-purchase inspection. And I'm not talking about just swinging by your regular mechanic. You need a specialist, someone who really knows their stuff when it comes to collision repair.
Someone who can spot a bad repair job a mile away.
Exactly. You need someone who can look at the structure of the car, see if there's any frame damage, check the alignment after repairs. Those are the things that could really make the car unsafe to drive.
And a vehicle history report's got to be on the checklist too, right?
Absolutely. Think of it like the car's rap sheet. You've got your Carfax, your NMVTIS. These reports can tell you all about the car's past, accidents, thefts, even if it had a salvage title before it's all in there.
What if the seller says they don't have any records or that the car's history is clean?
That's a big red flag. A good seller should be totally open, willing to give you all the paperwork you need. If they're not, walk away.
Yeah, it's like they always say, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of pictures. Ask the seller for photos of the damage before it was fixed. Like if they say it was just a little fender bender, but the photos show a smashed hood and airbags that went off. Well, you know something's fishy.
And wouldn't it be even better to talk to the shop that did the repairs?
Now you're talking. They can tell you exactly how bad the damage was and how well the work was done.
Okay, so we've got the inspection, the history report, the photos. What about the test drive? Is that still important with a salvage title car?
Oh, it's even more important. This is your chance to really put the car through its paces and listen to what it's telling you. Don't just take it for a quick spin around the block. Try different roads, different speeds, see how it handles. Listen for any weird noises, feel for vibrations, pay attention to how the car responds.
So slam on the brakes, take some sharp turns, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly. You want to make sure the car is doing what it's supposed to. If anything feels off, don't ignore it.
Got it. So let's say the car passes all these tests. What about the money stuff? I imagine getting a loan for a salvage title car could be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, you're right. Most banks and lenders don't like these cars. They see them as risky. So getting financing could be tough. You might need to look at personal loans or maybe even be ready to pay cash.
And insurance. Can you even get full coverage on a salvage title car?
It's a lot trickier. Some insurance companies won't even touch them. Others might give you limited coverage or charge you a fortune. You really got to shop around, get quotes from different places, and make sure you understand what's covered before you sign anything.
So it's like a double whammy, potentially higher costs for financing and insurance. Those initial savings might not look so good anymore.
That's why it's so important to think about all these costs when you're making your budget. You don't want to end up with a bargain that ends up costing you more in the long run.
Right, it's not just about that sticker price. What about resale value? Can you even sell a car with a salvage title?
It's really hard. Most dealerships won't take them as trade-ins.
Right.
And most buyers are going to be a little nervous about it, even if your car runs perfectly. That salvage title is always going to be hanging over it.
So if someone's buying a salvage title car, they should be prepared to keep it for a while.
Yeah, pretty much. If you're thinking about selling it again in a year or two, you're probably better off looking for a different car.
Okay, we've talked about all the risks and challenges, but let's flip it around for a minute. When could a salvage title car actually be a good option?
All right, let's play devil's advocate.
So, if I know a bit about cars and I'm willing to put in the work, could a salvage title car be a good project?
For the right person? Absolutely. If you've got the skills to assess the damage, fix things up, maybe even do some customizing, then a salvage title car could be like a blank slate for you.
It's like those fixer-upper houses, right?
Yeah,
You put in the sweat equity and end up with something great for a lot less money.
exactly. But just like with a house, you got to be realistic about your budget and what could go wrong.
Yeah, don't underestimate those unexpected costs.
Right. And even if you're handy, there's some things you just can't fix yourself. Like frame damage usually needs special tools and expertise.
All right, so DIRs, check. What about those diamond in the rough situations we talked about?
If you can find a car with mostly cosmetic damage, a salvage title might be a calculated risk. Remember those hail-damaged cars? The structure might be fine, but the insurance company totaled it because fixing all those dents was just too much.
So it's like getting a discount for something that's just a surface issue.
Right. But you still got to be careful. Hail can do more than just dent the car. Get that inspection, especially for the roof and the glass, to make sure there's no hidden damage.
Good point. Now, what about those older cars that get totaled for something small? Is that another situation where a salvage title could make sense?
It could be, if you just need a reliable car to get you around, and you don't mind driving something a bit older. A salvage title car could save you some money.
Especially if you're not worried about selling it later.
Exactly. But again, that inspection is super important. You want to know the car's been taken care of, and that any repairs related to the salvage title were done right.
Okay, what about theft recoveries? Those seem like they could be good deals if the car wasn't damaged during the theft.
Yeah, they can be, but there are a few things to watch out for. First, make sure they didn't strip the car for parts. Second, check for any vandalism. And third, even if the car looks okay, remember it might have been driven really hard while it was stolen.
So another time when a pre-purchase inspection is a must.
Absolutely. You don't want to inherit someone else's problems.
Okay, so we've got DIY folks, cosmetic damage, older cars, and theft recoveries. Any other situations where a salvage title might be okay?
Well, there's one more. It's a little more specific. Some people buy salvage title cars just for the parts.
Oh, like a donor car for another project?
Exactly. If you're fixing up an old car or building something custom, a salvage title car can be a gold mine.
And since you're not going to be driving it, the salvage title doesn't really matter.
Right. But you still want to make sure the parts are in good shape and that the price is fair.
Okay, so we've seen that there are a few times when a salvage title car might be a good fit. But I think it's important to remember that these are the exceptions, not the rule.
I totally agree. For most people, a car with a clean title is going to be the safer and smarter choice.
But for those who are willing to do their research, take a little risk, and maybe get their hands dirty, a salvage title car could be a way to save money or work on something they love.
It's all about knowing what you're getting into and being ready for the challenges.
Well said. Okay, we've talked a lot about what to look for when you're thinking about a salvage title car. But what about the things to avoid? What are the red flags that should make you walk away?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's dive into the danger zone.
All right, hit me with those cautionary tales. What's at the top of the list of things to stay away from?
Flood-damaged cars, for sure. They're like ticking time bombs. Water can cause all sorts of problems, corrosion, electrical issues, mold, all of which can lead to expensive repairs and even health problems.
So even if the seller says they dried it out and cleaned it up, it's still best to just avoid it altogether.
Absolutely. There's just too much risk of long-term problems that might not be obvious right away.
Okay, flood damage is a no-go. What else should we watch out for?
Cars with bad frame damage. This can make the car really unsafe.
So even if they fix the frame, there's no guarantee it's as strong as it used to be.
Exactly. And even if they did a good job fixing it, frame damage can mess up how the car handles and the alignment. You could end up with tires wearing out unevenly and all sorts of other problems.
So unless you're a mechanic yourself with all the right equipment, it's best to just stay away from cars with frame damage.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's not worth the risk. Another red flag is a seller who's not being straight with you, if they won't answer your questions, or give you the paperwork, or let you get a pre-purchase inspection. Walk away.
It's like they're hiding something.
Exactly. A good seller will be honest with you about the car's history and condition. They want you to feel good about buying it, not pressured into it.
Okay, makes sense. What about the car itself? Are there any things we should look for during the inspection that scream trouble?
For sure. Keep an eye out for paint that doesn't match, gaps between the panels that aren't even, And any signs that the repairs were done poorly, these could mean that they rushed a job or tried to cover up something worse.
Like on those home renovation shows where they tear down a wall and find a disaster behind it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to make sure the repairs were done right, not just to make the car look pretty for sale.
What about the inside of the car? Any warning signs there?
Definitely. Look for signs of water damage, like musty smells, stains, or rust. See if there's any mold or mildew, especially under the carpets and in the trunk.
Okay, and the mechanical stuff. Anything to listen for during the test drive?
Pay attention to any strange noises, vibrations, or jerking. These could mean problems with the engine, transmission, suspension, all the important stuff.
So if the car sounds like it's falling apart, that's probably a bad sign.
Pretty much. A well-maintained car should run smoothly and quietly. If you hear anything weird, get a mechanic to check it out.
All right, so we've covered the big red flags. But even if a salvage title car seems like a great deal, it's still a gamble, right?
Absolutely. There's always some uncertainty, and you have to be prepared for the possibility of problems down the road.
So you really need to weigh the pros and cons before you decide.
Exactly. Don't let that low price make you forget about the risks.
Okay, so we've talked about the risks, the rewards, the red flags. But let's think outside the box for a minute. What if, instead of looking for a car with a salvage title, we looked for a car that's about to get one?
You mean like a car that's been damaged, but the insurance company hasn't totaled it yet?
Exactly.
That's an interesting idea. It's like catching the car before it falls into the salvage title abyss. But how would you even find a car like that?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. But I bet you could find some connections with insurance adjusters, mechanics, body shops, maybe even look at online auctions or classified ads for cars with accident damage.
That could work, but it would be a whole different ballgame. You'd need to really know your stuff and be comfortable with the risks.
For sure. You'd have to be able to figure out the damage, estimate the repair costs, and deal with all the insurance stuff and the title transfer.
It's like you'd have to be a car whisperer.
Yeah.
Seeing the potential in a damaged car that everyone else overlooks.
Exactly. And you could get an even better deal, maybe even avoid all the problems that come with a formal salvage title.
It's a cool idea, but definitely not for the average person.
Agreed. It's like going off the beaten path. The rewards could be great, but the risks are high too.
So if you're someone who loves a challenge and has a knack for finding hidden gems, it might be worth exploring. But for most people, sticking with cars that have already been fixed and have a rebuilt title is probably the safer bet.
I think that's a good takeaway. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about salvage titles, the risks, the rewards, the things to watch out for. We even explored some unusual ways to find a good deal.
We've been on quite the adventure.
We have. But before we wrap things up, I think it's important to remember that buying a salvage title car is a big deal.
Absolutely. It's something you need to think about carefully, do your research, and be okay with taking some risk.
So if you're thinking about diving into the world of salvage titles, do your homework, talk to the experts, and be ready for anything.
And remember, even if it seems like an amazing deal, always trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is.
That's great advice. I think we've squeezed all the juice out of this topic.
I think so too.
But before we say goodbye, I have one last thought for everyone listening. We've talked a lot about the downsides of buying a salvage title car. But what about the other side?
What do you mean?
Well, we focused on the buyer's perspective. But what about the seller? What are the ethics of selling a car with a salvage title?
That's an interesting point. It's really important for sellers to be honest about the car's history and condition.
Right. They have to tell people about any problems or damage, even if the law doesn't require it.
Exactly. And they should be realistic about how much the car is worth, knowing that the salvage title is going to affect how much they can sell it for.
So it's about being honest and upfront with potential buyers, giving them all the information they need to make a good decision.
I agree. Selling a car with a salvage title shouldn't be about making a quick buck, especially not by taking advantage of someone.
It's about finding a buyer who understands the risks and is okay with owning a car that has a bit of a past.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding the right car for the right person, even if that car has a little bit of history.
Exactly. And that's a great place to end our discussion. So, to everyone thinking about buying or selling a car with a salvage title, we hope this deep dive has given you the knowledge and tools to navigate this tricky world.
Remember, do your research, be careful, and always put safety first.
and happy driving, everyone. You know, it's really interesting how this whole conversation, it's gone from just like the technical stuff about salvage titles to like a deeper look at the whole process.
Yeah, it's like we peeled back all the layers and found out there's a lot more going on than you might think.
Exactly. And that's what I love about these deep dives. We start with one thing, and then we end up exploring all these different angles and perspectives.
It's a journey, for sure.
It really is. So let's wrap things up by distilling all this information down to some key takeaways for everyone listening.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, first things first. If you're even thinking about a salvage title car, you absolutely have to get a pre-purchase inspection. And not just from any mechanic, from someone who really knows about collision repair. It's not just about finding problems, it's about having peace of mind.
Yeah, I can't stress that enough. It's like getting an X-ray for the car. You need to see what's going on under the surface.
And don't just take the seller's word for it. Get that vehicle history report, look at every detail, and watch out for anything that seems off.
It's like doing a background check on the car, you know. You want to know its history, its secrets, everything.
Exactly. And if you're feeling brave and you're thinking about a car that hasn't gotten a salvage title yet, be extra careful. That's a whole different level of risk.
Yeah, you got to be really sure of what you're doing.
Now, about those diamond in the rough situations, like older cars with minor damage, theft recoveries that are in good shape, hail-damaged cars, those might be worth looking at.
Yeah.
But only if they pass all the other tests with flying colors.
And remember, those diamonds are hard to find. Be patient, do your research, and don't be afraid to walk away if something doesn't feel right.
It's like searching for a four-leaf clover. You might find one, but you're going to have to look through a lot of regular clovers first.
That's a good way to put it.
Now, on the other side of things, if you see a car that's been in a flood or has bad frame damage or the seller's acting shady, just walk away. Don't let that low price tempt you into making a bad decision.
Yeah, those are the warning signs. It's like seeing a storm coming. Time to take cover.
Exactly. And buying a car, especially one with a salvage title, is a big decision. Take your time, do your research, and be ready to walk away if you need to.
It's like dating. You wouldn't marry the first person you meet, right?
Yeah.
Get to know the car, make sure it's the right one for you.
I love that analogy. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into salvage title cars.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. We hope you've learned a lot and enjoyed the journey. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when you're making a big decision like buying a car.
So the next time you see a car with a salvage title, you'll know what to do.
Exactly. Until next time, everyone, drive safe and make smart choices.
That wraps up another insightful episode of the Deep Dive Credit Podcast, brought to you by Elite Credit Solutions, your go-to resource for affordable credit repair across the United States. We appreciate you joining us today, and we hope you found the information valuable and empowering. If you're ready to take control of your financial future, don't hesitate to reach out to us at 813-317-6776. Additionally, don't forget to like today's podcast, share with your friends on social media, follow us, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay in tune with future updates. Thank you for listening. And until next time, keep striving for excellence in your credit journey.